Some people seem to be born with no end of good luck. Conversely, some people are just shit out of luck. Wherever they go and whatever they do, they just seem to strike out and always get the thin end of the wedge. Of those people, there are some who are even at the low end of that particular bell curve. Sorry, from your point of view, it'll be this end, won't it? So they're at the thin end of the bell curve of bad luck, meaning they always seem to get the shittiest of shitty luck. One of these poor unfortunates seemed to be Karl Karlsen, who, as well as having a deeply unimaginative name, had bad luck following him like toilet paper stuck to his shoe. He was tested more than Job, being beset by awful events. This man had more tragedies than Shakespeare. Or did he? In a series of unfortunate events, sometimes you have to look at the common links in those events, or indeed common people. No pulp references, thank you, please. When people close to Karl began to have suspicions, it put the events of Karl's life under a microscope, until after an absolute masterclass in interview techniques, Karlsen's stories started to crumble. This is Murder of Crows. In the early 1980s, Karl Karlsen was an Air Force cadet in North Dakota, and he was a perfectly normal young man. I imagine that by this point in his life, he'd never broken a mirror or walked under a ladder. There was no sign of the piss-poor luck that would befall him over the decades that followed. In fact, he seemed to have had enormous good luck in bumping into a young lady called Christina. And there was an immediate electricity between them. In fact, at this particular time, Christina was actually already married to another cadet. But the sheer force of the attraction between her and Karl convinced her that Karl was the person that she was meant to be with. And indeed, Karlsen's family also took a shine to Christina, with Karl's brother Michael later saying, "She was an amazing young lady, a great kid. The sun was always shining in her world." So the couple set about forging their own path in the world. They would get married, and they would go on to have 3 children together. But money was always tight. Karlsen was a blue-collar worker, and at that time had a role at a stone quarry. And the family were just scraping by. As time went on, Art Alexander, who was Christina's father, offered Karlsen a job at his sheet metal company in the Sierra Nevada foothills. Karlsen accepted the offer, and the family moved to Murphy's, California in the late 1980s. But when Christina's father went further and offered the family a home to live in rent-free that he was renting out at that time, Karlsen's pride ensured that he wouldn't be seen as a charity case. And this offer was rejected, with Karlsen instead buying a run-down shack for the family to live in. In fact, Christina's father would describe it as like an old miner's shack. But it was Christina who would make things special for the Karlsen children growing up in less than salubrious surroundings. The eldest Karlsen child, Erin, would later reflect on how Christina would make their ramshackle home seem magical, with her saying, "My mum used to take us on walks all the time, and we would collect leaves or acorns or whatever and press them into little books. We would go to downtown Murphy's and go to the candy shop or to the ice cream shop." So clearly Christina was creating this bubble for the children, effectively. But rose-tinted glasses could only polish this particular turd for so long. And while Christina's family initially had very warm feelings towards Karl Karlsen, as the thin veneer over the marriage started to crack, it seemed that Karlsen's true colours began to show, and he would emotionally abuse Christina by regularly calling her fat, and would at times become physically abusive, including on at least one occasion slamming Christina so hard that she flew clear across the room. But Christina was desperate for her children to grow up in a scenario with both parents, so she chose to shrug off his less than palatable characteristics. But it would be in 1991 that a tragedy would strike through the family that would change their lives forever. On New Year's Day in 1991, Karl Karlsen, then 6 years old, woke from a nap to the sound of screaming. When she peeked out of the door, she saw fire and smoke. It seemed that the fire was spreading quickly when her father scooped her and her sister up and put them in his pickup truck before rushing back through the smoke into the home. Karlsen managed to rescue his son Levi, but was unable to get to Christina, who had been taking a bath in the bathroom that was in the middle section of the house when the fire initially broke out. Christina died of smoke inhalation as the fire claimed much of the Karlsen home. The window to that bathroom had been recently boarded up. Now, this window would have been too small to escape through, but it may have bought some crucial time in the smoke building up inside of the home. Following these events, the entire family fluctuated between shell shock and heartbreak as they tried to come to terms with the tragic loss of Christina. When Christina's family wanted to view her body, Karlsen actually dissuaded them by very, very respectfully referring to Christina as a crispy critter, even though she had died by smoke inhalation and not actual burning. With the investigators still sifting through the ashes of the Karlsen home, the family tried to make a fresh start, with Karlsen moving the family to New York. As the family tried to put the tragedy behind them, Karlsen set up a new family home on a farm in Warwick, New York, where he developed a sideline in raising Belgian draft horses. He eventually remarried a woman called Cindy, but his irritability and anger were never far beneath the surface, as he attempted to raise his children. Erin later reflected on living with her father at this time. When my father was going to beat us, he would send us all to our rooms, so there really wouldn't be any witnesses. But it was Erin's brother Levi that seemed to bear the brunt of Karlsen's tough love. Levi would get beat with anything that my father had within reach. His fists, pipes, shovels, pitchforks, belts, electric cattle prods, you name it, it was used as a weapon against my brother. But Karlsen was still trying to appear as a good guy to those outside the family. Another tragedy would strike the Karlsen home in 2002, with the family barn being destroyed by fire, taking 3 of the horses with it. O Vulcan, god of fire, why must you toy with Karl Karlsen in this way? It makes the movie Backdraft look like a fly-on-the-wall documentary. But tragedy wasn't finished with Karl Karlsen just yet. In 2008, Karlsen was just getting his relationship with his son Levi back on track. Levi had a failed marriage and also had 2 children, and Levi had many run-ins with the authorities, but it seemed he was starting to turn a corner. And Karl Karlsen would allow Levi to work on some of the farm vehicles and would pay him whatever money he had on him as a way for the younger Karlsen to try to create a platform he could rebuild his life from. Now, in November of that year, Levi was working on the brakes of one of the farm trucks when Karl and Cindy were heading out to the funeral of Cindy's uncle. When the couple returned around 4 to 5 hours later, Cindy made a frantic and harrowing 911 call.
911, what's location of your emergency?
Yes, I live at 85 Yale Farm Road.
Okay.
I think I need an ambulance.
Okay, what's going on?
The truck fell on my stepson.
The truck fell on your stepson?
Yes, and we just got home, and I don't think he's alive.
You don't think he's alive?
No, 885.
Okay, he's pinned underneath the truck?
Yeah, my husband's lifting up the truck. Honestly, I don't think he's alive.
Okay, how old is your son?
He's 22.
And did your husband get the truck off of him?
He was stacking it up when I was just out there.
Okay, are you with your son right now?
He's not alive.
Is he breathing?
No.
He is not breathing. Okay.
No.
Okay, we're going to start CPR, okay?
Yeah, Carl, they want to start CPR. Do you know CPR? His chest is crushed.
His chest is crushed?
No. He's probably been under here for hours. Oh my God.
All right, what is your first name?
Cindy.
Cindy?
Cindy.
Okay, and your last name is Karlsen?
Karlsen. Oh my God.
Levi Karlsen was dead. Yet more tragedy for Karl Karlsen to cope with. In the midst of his grief, Karlsen's anger was never far away, and perhaps unsurprisingly, Karl and Cindy would eventually split, not quite getting to the point of divorcing. Over the next few years, the couple remained estranged, and by 2012, Cindy was at the point where she was starting to believe that the series of tragedies that followed Karl Karlsen may not have been the bad luck that it seemed to be on the surface. She believed that Karl may have had involvement with them, and in particular involvement in the death of her stepson Levi, who had been crushed by the truck 4 years earlier. She took her concerns to the authorities, taking with her recordings she had made of her conversations with Karl. Now, these recordings were poor quality, but there was enough for authorities to ask Cindy to try again with a wire that they supplied her with. In the conversations that follows, Karlsen stopped short of admitting to killing Levi, but he did suggest he had taken advantage of the opportunity. This was certainly enough to shine a spotlight onto Karl Karlsen, and they felt that there was enough to bring Karlsen in for questioning. What followed was a masterclass in interviewing and interrogation. Over the course of around 10 hours, this narcissistic bully was confronted with all his contradictions and changing stories, until, sobbing with self-pity, he admitted culpability in what happened to Levi. While the online footage is long, and I'm only summarizing it and showing key parts here, I would advise anyone with an interest in interview techniques to watch the longer form of the footage to get an appreciation for what the police did.
Come back a little after 4 and went out there and found it.
What else happened?
And then I left. Because he was in front of the bumper.
Was the radio on at that time?
Yep.
What was it playing?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. And then what happens?
And then I left.
You left with Cindy to go where?
To her aunt, I believe it was, to the reception, just a short time. Then we got back at it was after 4. I went out in the garage, and because we were surprised he was still there.
What was the amount?
$300,000.
Was there anything in addition that would subsidize that insurance policy? That would make it greater in event certain circumstances occurred?
Well, he had, there was, which I didn't know. Mm-hmm. He had, there was accidental death, which we didn't even talk about that I know of. But
were you there when he signed that?
Yeah, I was in the room and he signed that.
What were your plans with that money? What did you tell Levi? Yeah.
Oh, Levi wanted. Part of it goes to the girls.
Did he want you to have it?
I had total control because he did not, one thing, because...
Who spent that money?
Well,
I gotta ask, just because now that's brought up.
That's fine.
How much was insurance on your wife?
$200 on her. There was insurance on all the kids.
Uh-huh.
It was
You insured your kids?
Yeah, the wife you know, there was a little insurance policy on each kid.
Okay, it's like 3 or 4 months she's insured through your job, and then the fire occurs?
Right.
Okay.
I mean, and
It's striking.
believe me, if anybody.
Were you thinking like, I can't believe how does this
No,
happen?
I'm like, and my I'm, you know how some people go through life, and no matter what happens, everything that can go wrong can go wrong.
That's Murphy's Law. You must be.
I lived in Murphy's,
Well,
California.
yeah, that must have been Murphy's Law.
And it's like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. She had her demons coming into the marriage, which was her alcohol. You know, but at the time, I never knew
Why
that.
would she try to say,
To get everything,
what?
the house.
But there's nothing though, really, right? I mean, he's.
Well, I got the farm, that's 300 and some thousand.
Okay.
Because she knew I was gonna go after her for the house and the money for the girls.
What's suspicious about Levi's death? In your opinion, what is suspicious about it?
To me,
To us, in your opinion, you're a smart guy. Why do you think we're suspicious of it?
just, I guess.
Your
'cause of
daughter's a
Cindy.
cop, and she's a good cop, what you tell us.
She is
So
very
she
good
must
cop.
get that from you, being an analytical person. So if you were in our seats,
I don't know. I mean, well, I guess you can look at it, you know.
what is suspicious?
I guess it was, I don't,
Do you see
I guess
anything
because, oh
suspicious?
yeah, because I'm the last person that's seen him, and I had the insurance, well, that's fine. There are a lot of people that way. You know? There are a lot of people that, you know, you're the last one to see him, and I understand legally what has gotta be looked into. I'm not stupid.
Do you know how accurate they can do with the cause of death based on body temperature,
I know.
atmospheric temperature?
All I know is what they tell me.
It's accurate. Within, 15 to 25 minutes?
Yeah, maybe.
So there's a big problem.
I mean, I don't know, I'm thinking 4.5, maybe a little longer, because I know it was after 11 o'clock when we left, I think. And we didn't get back till it was like right around, I think, 4:30 or so, right in, you know.
We revisited all those things and all the things that were done at that time of his death. And we've sent them in to many places. They run the state police lab, the Monroe County lab. In there, if you're telling us the truth and saying you had a conversation with him, you're lying because he was dead at that time.
No, I had a conversation with him, I'll tell you that.
Okay. Well, he was either dead when you walked in there
No.
or as you walked out. Let's talk about what happened.
I walked in there to, you know, give him his money, and holy and I just, like,
Hardest day of your life? Why did you keep it a secret for so long?
what? Can I get another glass of water?
Okay.
Good, John. No f***ing way. It was an accident, and I blame myself every day, just like you said. That
So when you went back in, he was
dead,
He was dead?
and I freaked. I just like, it's like, it didn't happen. There's no way. You know, I mean, it's just, I would give my life for that kid. That just, you
Because
know,
I'm figuring out that story just doesn't hold up. It doesn't make sense. There's no way that you walk away from your son and leave him there thinking he's pretty much deceased, and then go away for 4.5 hours and then come back
you don't.
and then put on a big show with everybody.
Like I told him, when,
Come on, Carl, take the mask off, buddy.
I'm not.
Come on, this is
When it's like I told this gentleman, when I pulled him out and I seen his face, it was like, it was real. It was like, it was real.
So a guy like you that's mechanically minded, that knows how to jack up a car, you jack it up wrong.
Well, I didn't jack it up wrong. I mean, he knows the kind of jack I'm talking about.
I know the kind of jack, and I know from being on a farm my whole life, none of us would ever jack up and let our son ever get under jack with a single railroad jack on it. The most tippiest things in the world.
Well, it had blocks under the drums because the tires were off.
The tires were off, and the thing was up on a single jack,
Right.
a pivot point. Just as you described
Right.
it, Cindy. You described it right to the T
Yeah, but
on how you set it up and jacked it more and jacked it more and jacked it more. You go on with this conversation and you say to her, just hear me out. It was never meant to be. You know what I'm saying? It was never planned from the day one for this to ever go this way. And Cindy says, what do you mean day one? Like, you know what the time the insurance stuff.
The lieutenant places his hand on Carl's shoulder as the detective confronts Carl with his own words, confessing to the crime. This is an extremely pressure-filled position they have him in.
Correctly push easy. And she asked you, did he feel any pain? Remember that?
No.
And you said, no, you don't think so. You think it was instantaneous.
Why in God's name would you go in there and say that?
Because I guess part of me was hoping.
What, that she said?
Actual, that
I
wasn't the
said,
case at all.
no, I said.
It was a matter of weeks beforehand. A short term before the fire starts and takes your wife's
Really,
life.
I thought it was like 4 months.
You tell me that the kerosene was brought in to the house
Right.
that day to fuel a kerosene furnace.
Right.
Yet you tell investigators back then in 1991 that it was mistakenly, you thought it was water. You brought in the house as a 5-gallon jug of water to fuel to put in the toilet, to flush the toilet because your pipes were frozen.
Right.
And mistakenly kerosene was brought in and knocked on the floor. But yet you tell me kerosene.
Yeah, but you're.
And then you tell me that a dog knocks over a 5-gallon bucket.
Easy.
Not easy, almost impossible. We're 600 feet away from the house, yet your wife's in a boarded up little room and you hear her calling your name from 600 feet
it wasn't
away.
calling. It was screaming.
Screaming your name. And yet you're able to get blown off a porch.
I had no.
So these were just a lot of coincidences that you take a life insurance policy out of your wife a matter of 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 1 week before the fire. Just a coincidence that she goes in the bathtub. But that's a coincidence. Just total coincidence. You want to collect $200,000, $210,000, $215,000. You come back here, you buy your farm.
No, I didn't buy a farm.
Ultimately, you did. Did you not ultimately buy a farm? You bought a house, and then you ultimately bought your parents' farm. So entice him over to your house.
I don't entice him over to the house.
To pay him money. You're not going to pay him money?
Yeah, but I'm not enticing him. It's just what he always done.
Levi, come on over. I got $50 for you. Can you come? You're broke, and I got money for you.
Wouldn't you?
So now he comes over to your house with a $700,000 life insurance policy. 1 day from his physical. You go out there.
I don't know when his physical was. I don't know when it was.
You go out there. He gets under this truck. That your son, the one you're supposed to love and care for, this is your blood, your flesh and blood. And you jack it up on the chintziest, lousiest jacking system going that we both know of being on farms.
And they're
with no blocks,
powerful.
nothing to support in case it falls over. Just, it's only my son going underneath there. And if this truck falls on him, it'll crush him and kill him.
I don't know what's going to happen to you yet.
For something I didn't do. You know, for something I didn't do. I let him down. I walked away. And I lived with that for 4 years. You know, you guys somehow, pulled that out of me. And in a way, it's been a relief.
Good. It should be relief.
Never hurt him? Good.
You did. I'll stand up for you.
What are you going to do for me?
I'm going to stand up and say this wasn't premeditated, cold-blooded murder, that it was just something that happened. Shit happens sometimes, Carl. That's what I'll do for you.
And if I hit the box underneath it, it wouldn't have happened.
Carl, what's an accent, and why'd you try and hide it? You're very close, Carl. Good.
I didn't do it.
I think part of you did. May not all of you.
No way, I didn't. There was nothing.
Man, you can do it.
It's an accident. I opened up the door and stepped in.
So Karlsen was finally caught in the many lies and different stories he had told to different people. And in many ways he was hoist by his own petard. and it couldn't have happened to a nicer fella. It was time for the chickens to come home to roost. In 2013, he pleaded guilty to second-degree murder in the matter of Levi's death, having been crushed by a truck that his own father had caused to fall on him.
Karl Karlsen knew his sentence would be 15 to life as he was brought to the Seneca County Courthouse in Waterloo. His family knew it too, and several relatives, including one of his brothers, told us they were let down emotionally.
I think the most troubling part for me personally, not speaking for the rest of the family, is he showed no remorse today, and that bothers me. The smirks, the grins, it's like it was a game, and it wasn't a game, it was people's lives.
There was no trial. Karlsen had admitted to killing his 21-year-old son for $700,000 in insurance money. It was a cold case, but it was the family that helped solve it.
The family sat down and cried and talked, but gave us enough good information to give us a basis for a lot of what we did.
At this point, we'll still hold our heads high. We're still a strong Karlsen family. We had a problem, and we've dealt with it, and now we're trying to walk away from it.
Hugs and tears as the family left the courthouse, and they say this chapter is closed, but the case is not over yet.
It's not over, but we're fighting the fight in Calaveras County, and we're hoping that when Calaveras County indicts and finds him guilty, he'll never be up for parole. That's our hope.
But the case here in central New York may not be done. Just after the sentencing, Karlsen's lawyer told us he's filing an appeal.
I'm filing one within the hour.
On what grounds?
There are a number of legal grounds.
For now, the family promises to be at every parole hearing to see Karl Karlsen never gets out of prison.
But the authorities weren't done there. Because at this point they wanted to also look back on Christina's death in the fire at the family home in 1991. He was eventually charged with and convicted of Christina's first-degree murder by arson in 2020. And he was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. So Karl Karlsen's bad luck was actually just a series of poorly thought out bad decisions for the age-old motive of greed and of seeing insurance policies as a license to print money, with no regard for who or what needed to be destroyed in the process. Now, rather chillingly, Levi's children, aged 3 and 6, with his ex-wife Cassie, had also been insured by Karl Karlsen for $350,000 each. So his next safety net had been laid. And if previous behaviour is seen as a predictor of future behaviour, then these beautiful little children got a very lucky escape, with Karlsen having been taken out of circulation before he could do anything in this regard. It's clear that Karl Karlsen had no thoughts for anyone but himself, and whatever he had to do to get what he needed. In the end, while two innocent people had been caught in Karl Karlsen's despicable plans, it's easy to see how it could have been so much worse. Christina Karlsen's only crime was staying with a bully while trying to do the best for her children, while Levi, who had apparently been beaten remorselessly by his aggressive father for many years, was trying to rebuild a relationship with his dad as he was maturing into a young man, before his dad took away any potential that this young man was looking to build on. This video is, of course, dedicated to Christina Karlsen and Levi Karlsen, who were both seen as simply a means to an end for a psychopathic man who was, and indeed probably still is, a selfish, arrogant bully. They were both adored parents, and as such had infinite meaning to those around them, especially their children. I hope that they have found peace. Thank you for watching another episode of Murder of Crows. I'm Steve. Samson is around and about somewhere, being too much of a mercenary to show his face this time. But with that said, I'm Steve, and I'll see you when I see you.